Mrs. Amaka had been married to her husband, Mr. Anthony, for 6 years, but they had no child. This made her life very difficult, especially because her neighbors mocked her whenever they had disagreements. "Barren woman," they would call her, laughing cruelly. Each time this happened, Mrs. Amaka would go to bed crying, her heart heavy with pain. She would pray to God every night, saying, "God, please bless me with a child. I'm tired of being mocked. Please, Lord, bless me." Months later, her prayers were finally answered. At the age of 25, Mrs. Amaka gave birth to her first child, a handsome baby boy. The news came while Mr. Anthony was at work. His phone rang, and it was the doctor. "Congratulations, sir. Your wife has given birth to a bouncing baby boy." Without wasting a second, Mr. Anthony rushed to the hospital. When he entered the hospital ward and saw his wife holding their son, his heart filled with joy. It was as if he was the happiest man in the world. He picked up the baby smiling. "This is my son," he said proudly. Then, jokingly, he added, "Look at his nose. It's just like mine." For Mrs. Amaka, having a child was a dream come true. She felt proud and relieved. Holding her baby close, she thought to herself, "Finally, I have a son. No one in this neighborhood will ever look down on me again." The boy was named David, and as he grew, Mrs. Amaka's love for him only deepened. By the time David was 3 years old, he had become the center of his mother's world. She treated him like an egg, always careful to protect and care for him. Mrs. Amaka spent almost all her time with David. She took him everywhere she went, even to her workplace. They played together, laughed together, and spent every moment side by side. In her eyes, David was everything. However, this caused a problem. She hardly had time to bond with her husband anymore because she was always busy with him. David also became so attached to his mother that he rarely played with other children. After school, instead of joining his friends or neighbors to play, he would rush straight to his mother. She was always ready to play his favorite games with him, and even. David's world revolved around his mother. She was happy to give him all her attention, feeling grateful every day for the blessing he was in her life. Soon, Mr. Anthony began to notice how attached his wife, Mrs. Amaka, was to their son. It started to bother him because he felt left out. One day, he couldn't hold back anymore. He blurted out, "Why are you always with David? For goodness sake, he's already 4 years old. Let him be. He shouldn't be dependent on you always." Mrs. Amaka was surprised by his outburst. "Why are you talking like this?" she asked. "David is just a child and I'm his mother. Can't I play with my own son? Or is it a crime to spend time with your own child?" "I never said was a crime," Mr. Anthony replied. "I know you're his mother, but you don't need to be with him every single second. Give him some space. He is no longer a baby." Despite her husband's complaints, Mrs. Amaka didn't listen. She ignored his warnings, and nothing changed. Her bond with David only grew stronger. When Mr. Anthony was out of town for work, David would even sleep in her bed with her. In their home, they also had a maid named Stella, who helped take care of David when Mrs. Amaka was busy or at work. One day, while Stella was in her bathroom taking a bath, David went to her room. He was hungry and wanted to tell her. He entered her bedroom and saw Stella bathing with her clothes off. She didn't look the bathroom door while she bathed. He stared at her while she took her bath. When Stella noticed him, she quickly grabbed a towel to cover herself and shouted in shock, "What are you doing here? How long have you been standing there?" "I came to tell you I'm hungry," David replied innocently. "Is that why you were standing there watching me?" Stella yelled. Without waiting for his response, she rushed toward him and slapped him on the back. David screamed and ran out of her room crying. A few hours later, Mrs. Amaka came home and found David upset. He wasted no time telling her that Stella had slapped him. Furious, Mrs. Amaka shouted at the top of her voice, "Stella! Stella! Come here now!" When Stella came, Mrs. Amaka confronted her. "Why did you lay your hands on my son? Are you out of your mind?" "Ma, I'm sorry," Stella began. "He stood watching me while I was bathing, so I corrected him. That's why I slapped him." "Did I ask you to correct my son?" Mrs. Amaka fired back. "I've told you before, never lay your hands on him." "I'm sorry, Ma. It won't happen again," Stella said quietly, her head bowed in shame. "I don't need your apology. You're fired. I don't ever want to see you in this house again. If I do, I'll have you arrested," Mrs. Amaka said angrily. Stella packed her things and left the house immediately. When Mr. Anthony came back from his trip, Mrs. Amaka told him what had happened and why she had fired Stella. To her surprise, Mr. Anthony wasn't happy about it. "Why would you fire her?" he asked angrily. "She did the right thing. Why would David go into her room and watch her while she was bathing? Is that what he's being taught at school? He's just an innocent 4-year-old boy who doesn't know right from wrong," Mrs. Amaka defended. Soon, Mrs. Amaka and David became even more inseparable after Stella left. Since she no longer had a maid, it became her responsibility to bathe David every day. One day, Mrs. Amaka was about to take her bath. David was on his tablet, so she walked up to him from the bathroom naked. She didn't care to strip off her clothes in front of him. As she walked up to him, she said, "David, how are you? Drop your tablet. Let's me bath you quickly." David dropped the tablet and started playing with her 2 big oranges, jiggling both of them as he said, "Mommy, what is this?" She laughed as she watched him play with her oranges. "It's okay, let's go," she said as he took him to the bathroom and bathed him and herself simultaneously. Soon, it became normal for her and her son. They always bathed together every day. Things began to change when David was 17 years old. He admired and loved his mother so much, he didn't talk to any girl in school or at home. His mother basically became his best friend. David would always accompany her anytime they go shopping, and he would stay behind her like her bodyguard as they picked items in the supermarket. One day, as they came back from the supermarket, David's mother told him to take the things they bought inside the house. He took some of the stuffs in, and when he came out to pick some more, he saw one of their neighbors named Mr. Sam talking to his mother. Mr. Sam said, "You look very beautiful today. How are you doing?" As David heard him, he rushed towards him and punched him. "Why are you talking to her that way? She's a married woman." David's father rushed and held him, saying, he took him inside and questioned him. "What's wrong with you? Why did you attack him? Don't you have respect?" Mr. Anthony could not believe who his son was starting to become. He occasionally had reports from school. That's his. David was been involved in fights with his teachers and other students. He blamed his mother for not being strict with him. This time he took it upon himself to make a change. That night, Mr. Anthony sat with his wife saying, "Have you seen how arrogant you have made that boy become? Now he is fighting with our neighbors. He is now acting territorial around you. He needs discipline, in fact. He needs to be handled with an iron hand. And that's the part you failed. All you do is take home wherever you go as if he is a baby. You even bathe with him at his age. This has to stop today." Anthony's complaints fell on deaf ears, as his wife would always support and cover her son, saying he was a young boy and was innocent. One day, while Mrs. Amaka was in the living room watching TV, she saw David sitting at the dining chair, looking at her with a book and taking notes. She noticed and said, "Son, you have been there for over 10 minutes now. What are you writing?" "Noting, Mom. I'm just studying," David said. One day, while Mrs. Amaka cleaned David's room, she saw the same book David was using to write the other day. She opened it, and what she saw was shocking. He wrote a love letter to his mom, saying he would be with her forever, and no man would take her away from him, and would unalive any man who tried, including his father, Mr. Anthony. Seeing this, Mrs. Amaka felt sad. She blamed herself for not being strict with her son. She regretted being very close to him always, bathing with him, and stripping off her clothes in front of him even as he was a teenager. Few days later, it was lunchtime, and Mrs. Amaka called her son. "David, come and eat your food before it gets cold." "Okay, Mom," David said as he hurried downstairs from his room. While Mrs. Amaka dished his food, David sat down and stared at his mother uncomfortably. "Are you okay?" Mrs. Amaka asked. He looked up at her with so much admiration in his eyes. Then he said with a low voice, "Mom, I want to tell you something." "What is it? I'm all ears," Julian said as she sat beside him. "Mom, I want to tell you something important. Something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time now." Her heart skipped a beat. "Go on," she said. David paused for a while, looking at her eyes. Then he said, "Mom, I love you," David said. "I know. I'm your mother. Of course you love me," Mrs. Amaka said with a nervous laugh. "No, you don't understand. I really love you, Mom. You are the only one I've ever loved. No one else," David said. Mrs. Amaka stood up shaking as she was shocked about what her son was saying. "David, what are you talking about?" Before she could step away, David grabbed her hand, saying, "You are mine. We are meant to be together forever." "Let go of me," Mrs. Amaka shouted. "Stop acting like you don't feel it too, Mom. I see how you look at me. I know you have feelings for me too," David said. Mrs. Amaka finally broke free of his strong hold. She recalled the book she saw in David's room. She thought it was just an obsession and love, but now she found out it was way worse. She quickly took her phone and called her husband. "Honey, come home now. It's David. He's acting strange." David shouted, "Why are you calling him? He can never have what we have." Mrs. Amaka wanted to leave the house, but her son blocked her, saying, "You are not going anywhere to that man. You are mine, and mine only." Few minutes later, Mrs. Anthony pushed the door in, saying, "What's going on here?" David launched an attack on his father, saying, "She can never be yours. She doesn't need you. She is mine." Mr. Anthony managed to hold him down as he struggled to get up from the floor. Mrs. Amaka stood frozen with tears streaming down her face. She realized she made a mistake training David all throughout the years. Her blind love toward her son turned to something she couldn't control. After the incident, Mr. Anthony couldn't hold back his anger any longer. "I warned you countless times, Amaka, but you wouldn't listen to me. Now look at what you have turned our son into," he said angrily. Mrs. Amaka sat on the edge of the bed, with tears streaming down her face. She couldn't look her husband in the eyes. She felt embarrassed and sad as she realized her mistakes. She didn't set boundaries while raising her son. The next day, she took her phone and called her mother. She explained everything that's happened on the phone. The next day, Mrs. Amika arrived. She suggested David should be taken to a very strong pastor for deliverance. She said it wasn't ordinary. Mr. Anthony wasn't in support of seeing a pastor. He suggested that his son should be taken for therapy, or better still, he should join the military. After all, he was always pampered all his life and was turning 18 soon. Mrs. Amaka and her daughter Amaka took David to see Pastor Paul. the pastor began to prophesy, "Your son here is possessed with an ancestral spirit. He will be delivered surely, but because we start, the sum of 1,000,000 naira needs to deposit it to the church's account." Without hesitation, Mrs. Amaka transferred the amount displayed at the church's big screen. David stood beside them with an angry look on his face. The pastor and some of his prayer warriors started singing praises and chanting hymns. As he was about to lay his hands on David's head to pray for him, he pushed the pastor and began to fight him. Immediately, the pastor called on the security, and David was thrown out of the church. The pastor advised that he should be taken to a psychiatric hospital for checkup. After the encounter with Pastor Paul, Mrs. Amaka and her mother took David to different pastors, but his attitude didn't change. He was mean and disrespectful towards all of them. One morning she sat with her son, saying, "David, what have you turned into? You can never have me. I am your mother, and I gave birth to you. What you are talking about is an abomination. I know you are my mother, but I don't care. We are meant to be together. No one will ever separate us. And one more thing. Stop trying to take me to those useless places you call churches, because next time I won't go," David said as he walked out on his mother. Mrs. Amaka sat there crying, "What have I done to myself? As a mother, I failed in raising this boy. If I had known, I wouldn't have showered with him or even undress in front of him multiple times. I single-handedly destroyed my relationship with my son. I thought I was doing the best thing for him, boy. I was wrong. Lord, please save me from this nightmare." That night, Mrs. Amaka couldn't sleep. She thought of how she would distance herself from her son. She thought of sending him to a boarding school. But she had doubts because she knew he would not accept. One night, the most unbelievable thing you could ever think of happened. While Amaka was about to sleep, David walked into her room and forced himself on her. She managed to push him out and ran outside of the house. Luckily for her, her husband, Mr. Anthony, just arrived home. She told him what happened, and immediately he called the police and got his son arrested. Thanks for watching to this point. Drop a like and subscribe for part 2.